Okay, wonderful. Welcome. Can I do it with sunglasses on? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bright now.
Yeah, it's really bright.
It
Okay.
is.
Welcome. The learning target for this session is going to be that we can all describe the instructional strategy of close reading. We've already spent a lot of time on close reading, and so I wanted to give you guys a rationale for why it's so important. Close reading, as framed by the folks who wrote the Common Core State Standards, was described as first among equals. It's a foundational skill for many other essential student talents, such as writing from sources, using evidence, and it's actually a scholastic tool that's been used for hundreds of years by the most gifted minds in the world. And so what we're trying to do with this tool that's been used at the highest levels of research, academia, is make it kid-friendly and give kids the same kind of tools that the most amazing minds of many generations have had. So that's a little bit of a rationale. On that note, Expeditionary Learning has worked closely with the folks who wrote the Common Core State Standards, and so a lot of our work comes out of a really intimate and detailed knowledge of what they believe to be important. In terms of the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about text-dependent questions, and I like to think of text-dependent questions as a key that opens the door of close reading, because without the ability to really answer text-dependent questions clearly and used sentence-level analysis and word-level analysis, it's going to be almost impossible to craft a close reading. A couple characteristics of text-dependent questions really quickly before we launch in. So text-dependent questions require that students have actually read the text, as opposed to, for example, a text-to-self connection or a text-to-world connection where that's open to interpretation. They require that students answer through a close reading of a complex and worthy text. Excuse me. They require that evidence come from the text and not outside sources, which is crucial. And then finally, ideally, a text-dependent question will demonstrate understanding beyond the basic facts. So we're not looking for text-dependent questions that are, what color was the blouse that Yolanda was wearing in the story. We're looking for more sophisticated and higher order sort of thinking. All right. In terms of our coming activity, we're going to skim this document on text-dependent questions, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes. This is an article by Nancy Fisher, Douglas Fisher, and Nancy Frey. That's confused here in the text. And we're going to pay special attention to the graphic, and especially to the description of the types of text-dependent questions. The graphic's right here, or what are often referred to as TDQs. So feel free to take notes and highlight as you wish, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. So now that we've read for 5 solid minutes and had enough time to really synthesize the material, what do you guys now know about text-dependent questions?
They take many forms, and they always force the reader back into the text.
And it can be one part of the text or the whole text.
I like this idea that I know it's a little bit of strong language, but that they force the reader back into the text. I think that's really important. We want kids to have sort of the structure to drive them back into the text, as opposed to not.
The definitions were helpful on this side, using the graphic, but then being able to look at some of the keywords in here to be able to kind of look at what should be in a vocabulary and text question or an inference question.
I think one important point that I was talking to someone about earlier too is that in reality, not every question falls 100% into each category. So there is never a perfectly inferencing question that doesn't contain perhaps some elements of another question, like an opinion or an argument or something like that, or a detail. These are not entirely perfect categories, but useful categories that we're going to try to look at in the next section. I want you guys to keep that in mind for the next section that we look at. All right. Yeah, question.
I was going to ask a question. It seems to me that something could be gained from teaching these two students too. Maybe not right off, you know, but letting them have an understanding of what types of questions they're being asked.
Yeah, I think that's a great move.
So it's not a secret.
I even heard one of my colleagues, who's an amazing facilitator, suggest that teachers can post this in their classroom and share the types of questions that the kids are going to be engaging with. That was a joke.
I know, I was liking
okay,
that.
cool.
She didn't I was looking to see if you caught it. You would be excellent facilitator.
Catching up slowly.
She was like so.
Yeah, I don't do well in front of camera.
All right, great. So, any other questions? Okay, a couple key points to just hit here in terms of text-dependent questions. For a recap, they require evidence from the text, so that ensures that students actually read the text. They can refer to either part of the text or the whole text. So we can create questions that live at the sentence level, and we can create questions that live at the level of the entire document. They require different types of knowledge: general understanding, detailed thinking, inferencing, opinion forming, and they're often sequenced to support learning, or scaffolded. Wonderful. So yesterday, you remember that we dug pretty deeply into an article entitled "The Vietnam Wars," and we answered several questions using a graphic organizer. And so I want to engage with that graphic organizer now. We're going to try to label the questions that were asked in that document according to this schema. So if you can go through and look at questions, I believe it's 1 through 5, for either Jigsaw A, which was the Ho Chi Minh, or Jigsaw B, which is Fall of the French. And then we'll reconvene once you've coded each question and discuss our thinking. Okay, so let's look at Jigsaw Group A, Life, Liberty, and Ho Chi Minh. And we'll follow it with Jigsaw Group B, Fall of the French. For Life, Liberty, and Ho Chi Minh, our first question is, what kind of question did you think? And also, if you can provide the rationale, I think it's important for us to describe how we arrived at our conclusion, so if others have arrived at a different conclusion, they can check their thinking.
I have vocab down, so looking at vocabulary, text structure, and I think when you look at a few different things in here, it says to focus on these 3 vocabulary words, and then they're also italicized, which leads me to place that right where it needs to be, in my opinion.
Got it.
I had that as well.
Okay, great. Anything different? Any other conclusions? Wonderful. Number 2. Cite specific details from the text that describe Ho Chi Minh.
I think you just said it. Details.
Great, so key details. Wonderful. Anyone else have a different opinion?
I do. Oh no, this was the wrong one. Not this one. It's a different one. I already have a different opinion.
She didn't do her word.
Well, okay, it'll be this one. I do, because
I could see how you might want to think general understanding.
that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, that maybe they just needed a general understanding.
Right, because we want to get a sense of who Ho Chi Minh was.
I got it.
Yeah. So you almost read that question inferentially.
Yeah, well, we practiced that yesterday, remember? So I was like working on my inference, yeah.
Vague memory.
I think a reason why it's not general understanding. One reason why it's not general understanding is that in this first sentence it says that when it describes a general understanding question, it says these questions ensure that students grasp the overall view of the text. And
Oh,
this
right, I
is
forgot that.
This question asks for specific detail.
Actually, you know what, in
So,
my skimming, I missed that, so thanks for correcting me.
you're welcome.
Okay.
I thought number 3 was general understanding because it was sort of broad-based, and I figured if they were asking for a paraphrase, that they wanted something general.
Anybody arrive at a different conclusion?
Nope. I agree.
Great, me too. Look at how wonderfully smart we all are. All right, number 4.
I just saw something different that I didn't see before, which is asserted as in italics, like question 1 had words in italics. So this is one of those questions that's really kind of 2 things. It's inference, and it has a vocabulary piece to it.
That's right. I think that's right. And you could also argue that this is an opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have an opinion.
Or an argument. So this alludes to what I mentioned earlier, that there are some questions that really... There are some questions that we have some misbehavior over here.
Sorry.
To manage this audience.
I'm very sorry.
It speaks to my my notion earlier that there are some questions that have multiple strands of text-dependent questions inside of them. So in that case, we have to look at what is the predominant text-dependent question here. I came up with inference. I wonder what you guys came up with as the
For number 4?
Yeah, as the
Inference.
overarching sort of question.
Okay.
Despite the fact that other questions sort of live inside of it, or other types
Yeah,
of
but it's
questions.
kind of cool to see that there are multiple aspects to
It
some
is.
of
It is, and that's also
Or-
how.
Or that one part helps you ask the larger point.
Yeah.
Right. It's cool.
And finally, what seems to be the author? Actually, we're running low on time. Can we just skip number 5? Is that all right with you guys?
Sure.
Great.
Sure.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's close out with a check for understanding. So if you could let me know, actually, before we do a check for understanding, I'd like to restate the teaching point. So the teaching point is that I can describe the instructional strategy of close reading. So against that measure, if you got it 100%, give me a thumbs up. If you feel like I'm developing my understanding, you can put your thumb to the side. And thumb down means I've got lots more learning and thinking to do. Okay, great.
There we go.
Thank you
Nice
so
job.
much.
Yes.